to provide you with this information in a different format, you can see that there are complementary combinations. So compliance and dominance are complementary because they are both task focused and they like getting issues resolved. D's and I's go well together because they are fast and they like to take action and get things done. S and I go well together because they are relationship focused, and so they're very people focused and they just feel comfortable together. And finally, steadiness or security and compliance go together because they like things to be slower and they like to not rock the boat and to make sure they get things right. So you can see that there's some complementary styles. And if you do a DISC assessment, we tend to be dominant in 2 styles. And they usually are complementary. Not always, but they usually are. The next most common thing is for you to be dominant in 3 styles. It is rare to be dominant in 1 style only, and we are never dominant in all 4. So going forward, it's really valuable to sort of see the world in that way. And I really do think of DISC as being yin and yang, is that we have to have that balance in the world. We have to take risks, but we also have to be cautious. We have to go fast, but we have to go slow. We have to be focused on the task, but we also have to look after the people. There is a yin and yang to our lives all the time. And what you'll often find is that in your personal relationships, the person that you are in a relationship with is often the opposite of you. They're filling the gaps that you don't have. So if you are somebody who's very people focused, you might be in a relationship with somebody who's much more task focused. If you go fast, the other person might go slower. Like you will constantly come across yin and yang, and you use it. And when you look at teams, what we constantly find when we look at teams is that a workplace might attract a lot of high I's or a lot of SCs or whatever, but when you look at the adapted style, so the norm style will show there's sort of everybody's leaning in one direction, but then you look at the adapted style of the group and people will have adapted their behavior to fill in the gaps that need to be filled in, because the team needs people to behave in that manner in order to be successful. So I just want to reiterate the value of this, not just in a sense of understanding others, but also understanding some of the ways in which this information can be useful to identify possible risks. We've talked about these styles being complementary, but there are also styles which are less complementary and where there's going to be more problems. And these are this way to here. Compliance and influences can sometimes definitely not get on, particularly in a workplace, particularly when there's competition. Compliance people can see influences as fluffy, talk too much, not serious enough, just not doing the job that they think needs to be done. And they also go too fast. Whereas influencers can see compliances as the fun police, too detailed, stop the process. So you can see that there's absolute room for conflict in this space. And as a mediator, that's often what I see. I often see conflict in the workplace between these two, particularly if there's not a clear vision or clarity around roles and that. And so there's a who wins, who's going to get things done. And so you can see that that's absolutely an issue, and this is also an issue. And this is the issue because dominance people, sometimes they do go too fast. Dominance people don't always read the room well. because they're keen on winning. And so they'll say at a meeting, I've had this idea, what do you think? And they think that they've consulted and they haven't actually consulted effectively. And the high S has said yes, and then they actually didn't mean to say yes. And so they feel that they've been sort of pushed into a corner to agree to something they didn't mean to agree to. So you can see that the high D wants to get things done and will not always read the withdrawal behavior, the withdrawal signs from the high S. And the dominance, the steadiness people will say, too fast, don't care about me. I'm just not happy. So over and over again, this is where I see the conflict. Now, I've seen people with behavioral styles where their discs are that they are either high IC or they're a high DS, which is always really interesting because those styles are not complementary. But when you see those behaviors, you sometimes get this amazing mix. You know, somebody who can be influential, but also attention to detail, or somebody who can get things done, but also remain incredibly calm and be nurturing, you know, really valuable, but they're rare.